Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is January 2011 Integrated Algebra Regents. These are parallel questions. They're not excuse me, they're not exactly the same questions, but they're questions like number 24 in the January 2011 Regents. We're using them to study to make sure that we can pass this year's Regents exam. The expression quantity 8x to the fifth quantity squared over 4x is equivalent to what? Well, first of all, you have to take a little peek at the examples to see what they're doing, and they are simplifying them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 8x to the fifth to the squared is 8x to the fifth times 8x to the fifth, all over 4x. I'm going to use the commutative property of multiplication to put together the 8 and the 8 and the x to the fifth and the x to the fifth. It is not distributing, it's just commuting. I'm changing the order. 8 times 8 times x to the fifth times x to the fifth, all over 4x. Sorry about that short interruption. Let's see where I was. I commuted the 8 and the 8 so that they're next to each other, and x to the fifth and the x to the fifth so they're next to each other. Now, I'm going to do 8 times 8 is 64. X to the fifth times x to the fifth. Think about it. What do we have? We have x to the 10th, because remember, the exponent is just a shortcut saying we're multiplying that base times itself so many times. So this base x is being multiplied by itself 5 times. And the same base x is being multiplied by itself 5 times. So a total of being multiplied by itself 10 times. That's why it's x to the 10th. All over 4x. That's not one of the answers. I think I might have to simplify it then. Can we simplify 64 over 4? Yes, we can. It goes down to 32 over 2. Can we simplify that? Yes, it's 16 over 1. Now what about 10, x to the 10th, sorry, divided by x? That's x to the 9th. Notice that we only have a 1 on the denominator, so it's 16 x to the 9th. Watch out. It's not choice 3. Please read your answers and read the solution more than once. We don't want you to lose 2 points on a test. The difference between a 63 and a 65. You think, oh, I'm not going to get a 63. Don't worry. We have a lot of people that walk out of here with a 63 saying, I knew the answer, I had it written down, why didn't I get the 65? It only takes one person to really stick in your memory. Let's take a look at number 25. What is x in terms of a, b, h, and r? Well, I have no idea what this question is asking. Of course I know what this question is asking. I wrote the question. I'm just putting myself in your place. If you have no idea what the question is asking, let's take a look at some of the solutions. There's no x's in these answers. There's no x's in these answers. Oh, what is x in terms of? In terms of? That means let's get x by itself. Okay, so let's put an anchor over the x. The x isn't going to move. That's fine. I can subtract h from both sides. If the h goes away to the other side, I'm left with a times x divided by b equals r minus h. Remember, this is a course full of mathematical formulas and equations and expressions. We can use this in computer programming so that the computer is inputting numbers for that depending on the situation. And that's what's happening here. Now, I said that this is a times x divided by b, because now we're going to times it by b. We're going to times it by b. Remember, we're multiplying everything on the right-hand side by b. I can either write r minus h times b. Why don't I write that? or I could have written b times r minus h. Well, the x isn't by itself yet. I have to divide by a. Now, when I'm dividing by a, I'm going to write it as a fraction. Take a look at the answers. Honestly, I thought I was going to have to commute the b to the beginning, but I didn't. That's an exact match. Let's summarize this really quickly. First thing that I had to know was that in terms of meant get x by itself. Okay. Then I anchored the x. It isn't going to move. The opposite of addition is subtraction, so I subtracted h from both sides. You get rid of addition and subtraction first, then multiplication and division. There we go. If there are any questions, make sure you ask me in class or email me. Number 26, what's the result when 5x cubed minus 3x squared plus 7 is subtracted from? Subtracted from. From means write that first. Okay, so I'm going to leave the 8x cubed plus 2x minus 8 there, and this is going to go underneath because this has to be first. From means first. So 5x cubed minus 3x squared plus 7. Okay, I just moved it over there so it's a little easier to work with. Remember, we are subtracting. So 8x cubed minus 5x cubed is 3x cubed. Here's the tough part. Positive 2x subtract negative 3x squared. Okay, hang on a second. I just noticed that this one didn't have a square on it. So let me sit down at the computer and I'm going to show you something. What we have to do here is, that showed all the choices down there. So what we have to do here is tab this over. We didn't have any x's. Now I'm going to grab these, hopefully, and move them over. So now I have that lined up. The x's are lined up with no x's here. So we have 0 x's right there. So in the expression above, I'm going to have plus 0x squared plus 2x. Now when I have 0, subtract negative 3x squared is positive 3x squared. Then my 2x's plus no x's, or subtract no x's, is still positive 2x. Now negative 8 subtract positive 7 is negative 15. Okay, so that's why when you're doing a problem, you should always check it right along. Let's see if that's our answer. And we have positive 3x squared plus 3x squared, sorry, positive 3x cubed plus 3x squared plus 2x minus 15. It's choice number 3. Okay, so we have to be careful with everything. If I would have made the mistake that I was going along before catching it, it would have been answer number 2. So even your mistakes are choices in a multiple choice question. Let's take a look at the next problem. Number 27. What is the equation of the axis of symmetry of the parabola represented by this equation? There are 2 ways to do it. If you graph it on a graphing calculator, you can see that the axis of symmetry cuts the parabola in half. However, some of the times the regions will give you a parabola that you can't see on the graphing calculator. This parabola happens to be opening up down just because it's a negative x squared. So we have to know the equation for the axis of symmetry. The equation for the axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. A, x squared plus bx plus c. That's the standard form of the equation. So a is -1, b is +10, and c is -8. We're not going to use c in this equation here. But x equals negative, the b is 10, we put it in parentheses just to be safe, divided by 2 times -1. Please, when you do it, you do -10 over 2 times -1 is -2. You do that multiplication. Otherwise, your calculator will give you the wrong answer. So x equals +5. That's the equation for the axis of symmetry. And it is choice 1, x equals +5. If you have any questions, make sure you ask me in class. Number 28, which equation has a root of -2 and +6? There's no way to do this problem without at least looking at the choices, and we see that they're all quadratics. Okay, so a quadratic equation has a root of -2 and +6. -2 and +6. If we have a parabola and it goes through the x-axis at -2 and +6, those are known as roots, they're known as zeros, and they're known as x-intercepts. However, the factors are the opposites. And I don't mean reciprocals, I mean the opposites. So the opposite of -2 is +2. The opposite of 6 is -6. So those are the factors. What's the big deal there? Well, we don't have one of our choices, 1, 2, 3, or 4 here, but we can distribute. X times x is x squared. X times -6 is -6x. X times 2 is +2x. +2 times x is +2x. And then +2 times -6 is -12. X squared minus 4x minus 12 equals y is the equation. Let's see if that's one of our choices. We want a -4x and a -12. What do you want to do to check this? Type it into your graphing calculator and make sure that it crosses the x-axis at -2 and +6. Let's look at number 29. A spinner is divided into 8 equal sized sectors, okay, and is spun 20 times. The accompanying table shows the number of times the arrow landed in each numbered sector. So what does that mean? That means I have a spinner. Here's the spinner, divided into 8 equal segments, and they happen to number them. And it's spun 20 times. The results are recorded in this table. So it hit number 1. It hit on block number 1 twice. Hit on block number 2 3 times, and so on. It hit on block number 5 4 times, which is the most. Hit on block number 8 only once. Are there 20 times when we add them up? Yes, it does come up to be 20. Okay. Based on the table, what is the mathematical probability that the spinner will land on a composite number on the next spin? It says based on the table, not based on the fact that there are 8 equal sized wedges in the spinner. So, based on the table, what is the mathematical probability the spinner will land on a composite number? You have to understand that 1 is not prime nor composite. 2 is prime because it's only divisible by 1 in itself. 3 is prime because the only factors of 3 are 1 and 3. This is composite. 4 because you can do 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. 5 is prime because only 1 times 5 is 5. 6 is composite because it's 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. 7 is prime. And 8 is composite because 1 times 8, 2 times 4. So the composite numbers are 8, 6, 4. 1 is neither prime nor composite. So how many times did we have a composite? Once, plus 2, plus 3 is a total of 6 out of what? 20. How do I know it's 20? 2 plus 3 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1 is 20. It also says it was spun 20 times. 6 out of 20 based on the table. Based on the table now, what is the empirical probability that it lands on a composite number? Okay. The explanation I just gave you was the reason for the empirical probability. I don't like this question because it says based on the table. It should say given the spinner, what is the mathematical probability that the spinner will land on a composite number? So the whole explanation I just gave you is empirical probability. Empirical probability means that if I have some collected information, I collected the information by spinning the spinner, what's the probability to land on it? Now, given the spinner, what's the probability that the number will land on a composite number? There's once, there's twice, there's 3 times. 3 times out of 8. The answer for that one is 3 out of 8. My apologies, I should have read the whole question before answering it. But that's what happens. You're always thinking the previous question and the questions you've answered. Because when you do make a mistake, you can go back and correct it. Make sure you ask me about this in class. Simplify the following. Take a look at the answers. How do you want me to simplify it? Whoa. There are some that have constants. There are some that have monomials. Okay, so let's try simplifying it. I think the top is a trinomial. What 2 numbers multiply to be 8 and add up to be -2? Because the leading coefficient in front of the x squared is 1. What 2 numbers multiply to be -8 and add up to be -2? What 2 numbers multiply to be +8 and multiply to be -6? What can I eliminate? You can only eliminate things that are being multiplied by each other. Just out of curiosity, I wonder, can I cancel the x and the x? Absolutely not. Why not, Mr. Brice? I can't cancel them because they're being added or subtracted. You can only cancel something, simplify it if they're being multiplied. So let's see if there's an x plus 2 and an x minus 2. Hang on a second. I am correct, but the selection choices are wrong. So this is the correct answer. It should have been one of the choices. You have a great night. If you have any questions, make sure you email me or ask me in class.